Welcome. Glad to have you here today. Today we are going to look at a vertical sequence for your back. And by vertical, I mainly mean that all of the movements we're going to do today are going to be from a standing position. There's lots of different ways to move the back, and many of them are very helpful for the back. But we're gonna limit ourselves today to just standing poses, and we're going to look at a number of different ideas, a number of different starting positions, ending positions for the back. So we'll look at things like cat-cow, what that means for the positioning in the back. We're going to look at what a long back is and how to use it in different movements, different poses. We're going to look at also some movements that will be straight plane. So forward flexion is a straight plane movement. Your body moves forward and back in one plane. The movement is in one plane. However, in order to really move the back in the way that it was designed, if we can say that, you have to look at twists. And so we're going to be looking at a number of different twists here, and we'll be looking at a bunch of different ideas pertaining to twists, like anchor points and simple twists versus counter twists. So some of the movements that we'll be doing today will or can be fairly intense, and so I'd like you to monitor your own back here so that you choose your own intensity level and don't overdo things. If you find that things are uncomfortable or that a particular movement we're doing is just doesn't feel good, then you should stop and reduce the intensity level. The idea here today is to give you some tools so that you can work with your own back and hopefully improve its range of motion and its strength. We are going to be using a couple of props today. We're going to be using a stick, and a stick could be a broomstick, it could be a yardstick, it could be a mop handle. I'm going to be using some PVC tubing, but we will need a stick. And we're also going to be using a belt. I'm going to be using a gait belt from physical therapy. You could be using that, or a regular belt from your pants, or any other sorts of yoga belts that you may have hanging around the house. So let's get started. We're going to start, with the belt, and I'd like you to have it into a loop and generally measure across your hips. That'll give you a good starting point for what kind of length we need on the belt. But have it in a loop. What we're going to do is we're going to step through the loop and put the strap just above the knees. So if you stand in standing mountain, in other words, your feet about hip width apart, there should be some play in that belt. And you should have the buckle here in the center so that it's not going to press against your skin. So from this position, what we're going to do is bend the knees a little bit. Here's a side view. Going to bend the knees a little bit. We're going to bring our hands down just above that strap. Put the thumbs underneath the strap and their fingers on the outside of the strap. And we're going to hold our body weight, the torso weight, on our arms and shoulders. So the hands and the arms and shoulders are all holding the body weight right there. And we're going to just relax into that pose. I want you to just let your body sink down in. Your knees are going to be forward, so there's a bit of bend in the knees. You can see here. And what I want you to do to start is to think of your spine as a big rope. And it's anchored here at the hips and here at the shoulders. And between those two anchor points, that rope is just going to hang nice and low. It's going to find its equilibrium somewhere with a back curve. And that curve in the back is going to be called a long back. And we're going to be using long back as a starting position for a number of these movements today. So this is a long back. It is not quite a cow position, but it's not cat either. So let's look at those two back positions right now. Cat position is where you find the center of your back and you lift it up towards the ceiling, up towards the sky. That's cat position. So what happens in cat position is the normal curves of the spine. Lumbar comes in, thoracic comes out, cervical comes in again. All of those curves are curved in one direction, like this. So cat position is like this. Notice all of the curves in the spine curve in one direction with a nice arch in the back. That's cat position, kind of like an angry cat. The reverse of that is cow, and I want you to think as in you've got a 30-pound udder fastened right here on your belly. What would happen if you had that kind of weight on your belly? Well, you'd have a sway back. And so what you've got in this instance, in a cow position, is that all of the natural curves are curving. Some of them, the lumbar and the cervical, are curving the same direction, but what we're doing is we're straightening out the thoracic. So the thoracic is from here to here, and the thoracic typically has a bend like this. What we do in cow position is we take that bend in the thoracic curve and we straighten it and actually reverse it a tiny little bit. So here's cat, here's cow. And if we relax from cow position, we come into a long back position. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in some breath work and we're going to move from cat to cow. And the breath work is exhale as we come into cat, inhale as the chest opens into cow. Exhale, inhale. Now, what we're doing here with the other bits and pieces is that we're pressing the knees out strongly against that strap. The knees themselves stay in the same position throughout the movement, so they're not straightening out and bending like this. They're staying in that same position throughout the movement. So exhale as you arch your back into cat. Inhale as you extend into cow. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. There we go. Now I want you to feel what you can feel as you do this nice slow cat-cow movement with the knees pressing out. Notice what you feel. And let's release. When you're in a cow position, let your spine go into that long spine position. So in other words, no movement here. You're not trying to control where the spine is. Just let it hang between the shoulders and the hips. And what we're going to do next is we're going to take our left shoulder and we're going to move it forward. So I'm going to move it towards the camera. So left shoulder moves forward, and notice what happens here. There's a lengthening on the left side of the body, a shortening on the right side. Come back to center. Move the right shoulder forward and release. So in terms of breath work, you can move any way you wish. I'm going to exhale as I move a shoulder forward. Inhale back to center. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Now I want you to notice a couple of things that are happening here. I want you to notice what's going on with the pelvis. So what we have here is a little bit of a twist going in the spine, in the hip joints, and in the legs. So there's a little bit of a full body twist going on here. I want you to notice the rotation of the shoulders and the hips, the pelvis. So if I extend my right shoulder forward, my shoulders are facing off towards the left, my pelvis is facing off towards the left, my knees have a little bit of a rotation in them, and I come back to center, and I reverse that. So what we have here is a full body twist, and every twist has at least one anchor point. And in this case, the anchor point, the point that doesn't move, that's the foundation of the movement, is our feet. So the twist in this position starts right at the ankles and moves up the body. So legs, hips, pelvis, back, shoulders, they all twist in the same direction, with our anchor being the feet. So let's come back to center. Bend your knees a little bit. Come on up to vertical, and let's drop that strap off. Put that aside. We'll come back to it a little bit later. So what we're going to take a look at next is going to be a long back from a vertical position without the arms and hands. So here's how we're going to accomplish that long back. You'll remember the long back we achieved by coming into this position and just letting the back release and settle into a comfortable position. So that's long back position. We can get the same sort of back positioning from a standing position, and the way we're going to do it is we're going to move the arms and we're going to move the knees. So what I want you to do initially is put your hands back here on your back muscles, maybe a little bit above your pelvic crest, part of your pelvis. Come up a few inches, put your hands there, and then we're going to bend the knees, and you're going to notice at some point the muscles in your lower back are going to engage. And that may differ quite a bit between all of us. For me, right about there is where these muscles here start to engage. And when I come up, they disengage. So there's a muscle engagement. There's none. There's the engagement and none. So the simple act of bending your knees is enough to engage the lower back. And for some of us, especially with back pain, that might be as much movement as you really need to do. And you may want to skip the rest of this depending on the state of your back. So what we're going to look at is long back and how we get to that position. And here's how we're going to do it. We're going to bend the knees a little bit, and then we're going to take the arms up over our head. And this position here, if you were to bring your arms back down, this position here is a long back. That's that same position we had like this. And there it is. There's the long back. So what we're going to do is we're going to move into a long back. Inhale, lift the hands. Exhale, bring the hands down. When the hands come down, you're going to slump forward into cat position. So here's cat. Here's long back. If you want to think of this as cow, it's similar. Cat. Inhale, lift. Exhale, come down. Inhale, lift. Exhale, come down. Inhale, lift. Exhale, down. Let's do a few more of those at your own pace. Notice that the knees stay in space. They stay in the same position. The movement takes place above the pelvis in the spine. And release. All right. So what we're going to do next is we're going to add a little bit of a twist to that same basic movement, and this is what it's going to look like. So we'll inhale as the arms lift, and at the top, we'll twist to one side. Exhale, come back down. Inhale, lift, and twist. Exhale, come down. You'll notice the knees. I should turn this way so my audio works. Notice the knees are bent the entire time. Inhale, lift, and twist. Exhale, come down. Inhale, lift, and twist in the opposite direction. Exhale, down. So there's our movement. I'll let you do a few on your own. Inhale, lift, and twist. Exhale, down. Inhale. Exhale. Now, as you do this movement, notice if the twist to the sides feels the same. You may notice that the twist to one side feels a little bit different than the other, and that's a great observation. We do want to pay attention to what we feel as we do this movement. Also want you to notice that as we do this twist, the shoulders move, the pelvis moves a little bit, and the anchor point again is our feet. So the shoulders, the pelvis, the hips, the legs all twist in the same direction, in this case towards my right. Exhale, down. One more. And release. So notice for a second how that feels and what you notice in your body, what's been engaged. Especially this morning, for some reason, I'm noticing a lot of engagement here in the upper back and the trapezius. So the next movement we're going to do is a forward flexion. And a forward flexion, in really simple terms, involves a long back that maintains its position. So a nice long back. a little bend in the knees, and all of the movement takes place right here at the hip joints. So with the long back, we hinge forward. This is a forward flexion. Now, the amount of movement forward determines the intensity of this pose. And so a shallow movement like this is going to be less intense than a really deep movement. And so I want you to find the level of intensity that works for you. So if you've got some sensitivity in the back, you may want to do a fairly shallow forward flexion. So let's look at the details. So your feet are going to be about hip width apart. So find your hip width. Outside edge of your feet will be about that same width. From the side, we're going to bend the knees a little bit. We're going to have that long back. So if you want to lift your arms and find that long back and bring the hands down, that's fine. Some of us find if we bring our hands behind our back and even push out a little bit, that helps with the long back. So with that long back, I'd like you to bring your hands again back to your muscles on your lower back. And what we're going to do is we're going to find our butt. We're going to stick our butt out. So stick your butt out and notice the engagement in those lower back muscles. So it shouldn't require a whole lot of movement. You should start to feel some engagement in the lower back muscles with even just a half inch of movement. So just notice that engagement in the lower back as we stick our butt out. So what we're going to do with that is that same movement with the butt sticking out a little bit is part of the long back sequence. And by bringing our hands back like this, we start in a long back and we move from the hips. So the knees stay where they are, we move forward into a forward flexion, and we come back up. We exhale down, we inhale up. Keep the knees bent, keep the back nice and long, so that there's a long, long curve here in the back. Exhale down, inhale up, exhale down, inhale up. And I'd like you to experiment a little bit. Do some very shallow movements, and then do some movements down a little further, and then try some where you come way down. Now the key here is to keep that long back. You don't want the lumbar curve to start rounding. We want to keep the lumbar curve in this state from a long back position. So keeping that back, come on down, come on back up. And I'd like you to experiment a little bit here. Some very deep forward flexions, some medium forward flexions, and some shallow forward flexions, just so you can feel the difference between each of those movements. Exhale down, inhale up. And in order to make this movement a little bit more intense, a little more interesting, one thing we can do is to make it into a little bit more asymmetric. And we do that by lifting one heel. So I'm going to lift my right heel a tiny bit off the mat, maybe a half inch, and continue with that same movement. Here's a forward flexion. Come on back up. When I come up, I put the right heel down, lift the left heel. Exhale down. Inhale up. Put the left heel down, lift the right. Exhale down. Inhale up. So each time you're up, switch heels. One lifts, one goes down. And continue with this movement. Now you'll notice the leg with the heel lifted is not engaged all that much. I'd say probably about 80% 80% of the action is now on the planted leg. So we have an asymmetric movement here. The long back is supported by the back muscles. And what we are doing here in a forward flexion like this is we are doing range of motion with the hamstrings. So the hamstrings lengthen as we come down low, and they engage to pull us back up. Here's the hamstrings long, hamstrings contract to bring us back up. So let's do a few more of these and just notice what you feel in the hamstrings. Notice if one side feels a little different than the other. And since you're getting good at lifting this heel thing, what we're going to do next is instead of just lifting the heel, we're going to lift the entire foot off the mat and continue with the forward flexion. So the planted knee stays bent. The lifted knee comes a little bit in front of the planted knee. The long back maintains the long back. You'll probably notice that you can't flex as far forward as you could, but you'll also notice that there's a lot more engagement in the hamstrings and in the planted leg. The hamstrings play a huge part in the health of your lower back, and so anything that is going to be addressing back health would have to incorporate something at the very minimum for the hamstrings. So let's do a few more. Lifted knee comes forward of the planted knee. The back stays long. And release. All right, let's take a look at our prop. So I've got some PVC plumbing tubing. You can use anything that you wish that's long and straight. It probably has to be at least 2 to 3 feet long. So broom handle, mop handle, yardstick, PVC piping, whatever you've got. What we're going to do is we're going to use this as a monitoring device for the long back. And the way we're going to do it is that we're going to hold that long stick against the spine. The bottom end of the stick should be somewhere near your tailbone, and the top end will end up wherever it ends up. We want to have it right down the spine. So up here at the top, where it presses in, it should be directly on the spine. And what we're going to do is we're going to measure the lumbar curve right here with our fingers. So how many fingers? Can you get 2 fingers? Can you get 3 fingers? So we're going to use our hands to measure that gap. So standing as you normally would, I'll step a little closer. Standing as you would normally would, put some fingers back there and determine how big the gap is between your lumbar curve and the stick. In my case, I have only about 1 finger. I don't have a whole lot of curve there. So maintaining that lumbar curve, we're going to bend our knees and then flex forward. Now, typically what is going to happen is at some point you're going to start feeling pressure with the lumbar curve pressing against your finger, and the gap there between the stick and your lumbar curve starts to collapse. And at that point, I want you to stop and see if you can get a little bit more lumbar curve by rolling the pelvis forward. So the pelvis rolls forward, and continue on your way down. If you hit a point where you can't roll the pelvis forward anymore, that's where you stop and you come back up. So the stick is a feedback device that gives you the ability to monitor how your lumbar curve is doing in a forward flexion. So let's look at that a couple of times. So little bend in the knees, measure that lumbar gap, flex forward. When that gap starts to collapse, roll the pelvis forward a little bit and continue on down. And at some point, the gap there between the stick and your lumbar is going to, you won't be able to make it any wider. It's collapsing. That's where you stop. Come on back up. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Let's do a few more on your own. And release. You put that stick aside. The stick is used to give yourself some feedback on what's happening with the lumbar curve. If the lumbar curve is collapsing, you've reached the extent that you should be going to in the forward flexion. So it's a really valuable tool. It's a handy device to come back to every now and then and check in again on how your body is doing. You may notice that it feels a bit different because using that does give you a little better feedback, and better feedback can oftentimes change the quality of your movement. So all in all, a good thing. Let's take a look. Oh yeah. We're going to look at one more forward flexion. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a bit of a twist in the leg. And this is what it's going to look like. So again, we find our hip width, put the outside of our feet about as wide as our hips. Nice long back, a little bit of bend in the knees. I'm going to lift my left heel. So left heel is lifted. I'm going to flex forward, and I'm going to move to the outside of the planted leg. So my right leg is planted. I'm going to move outside the right leg. Then I'm going to swing in towards the lifted foot, and maintaining that angle of the torso in this direction, I'm going to come back up. I'm going to put the left heel down, lift the right heel. So this is lifted. I'm coming down in a forward flexion. I rotate to the left, so outside of the planted leg. I rotate to the lifted leg. I maintain that angle this way, and I maintain that, and I come up. I change the heels, right heel down, lift heel lifted, forward flexion, go outside the planted leg, come to the inside, maintain that angle, and come up. Switch heels, rotate out, come across, and come up. Nice. The breath work here is as such. So I've got my right heel lifted, left heel is planted. Exhale down and to the left. Inhale to the right and come up. Switch heels. Exhale down and to the right. Inhale, come on up. Exhale down and twist. Inhale, come on back up. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Let's do a couple more. And release. All right. What we're going to do next is going to involve the movement of the knees. And we're going to move the knees and the hips in different directions. So what we're going to do is we're going to start in a vertical position. I'm going to move my left knee forward, so my left knee pushes forward towards the camera. My right knee pushes back away from the camera. And then I'm going to come back to center. And then I'm going to reverse. So right knee forward, left knee back. And I come back to center. Here's what it looks like from the side. Right knee forward, left knee back. Come back to center. Left knee forward, right knee back. Come back to center. So here's how we work with the breath in this movement. We're going to exhale as the knees move. Inhale back to center. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. So nice and smooth. Notice what happens with the pelvis as one knee pushes forward and the other knee pushes back. The pelvis is going to tilt forward. Notice here. So I start in a vertical position. As the knees move apart, my pelvis tilts forward. I'm keeping that long back. So again, I'm not letting the lumbar curve collapse. I'm keeping that nice long back. Pelvis tilts forward, and it also rotates to the side. So here's my pelvis here. As the knees move forward, my pelvis rolls to the right, comes back to center, and it rolls to the left, back to center. So just notice the pelvis both tilting forward and rotating towards one side. Exhale as the knees move. Inhale back to center. Let's do a few more of these on our own. Now, I'm going to switch around so you can see this a little better. What we've been doing is letting the hips and the pelvis move based on what the knees are doing. So as the knees move, the pelvis tilts forward, it rotates to one side. Shoulders, in general, are following the pelvis, right? So pelvis rolls to the left, shoulders are rolling to the left. Pelvis and shoulders rotate right. We're keeping that nice long back. And what we're going to do now is we're going to change the anchor points. In this basic movement, the anchor point, again, is our feet. I mean, the feet are almost always going to be an anchor point. What we're also going to do, though, is we're going to change this alignment a bit and use our shoulders as an anchor point. What we're going to do is we're going to find the front of our mat or the side of our mat, and we're going to try to anchor the shoulders so that they are parallel with the front of the mat. So this is what it's going to look like. So instead of the shoulders following like this, the shoulders are going to stay parallel to the side or the front of the mat. We come back up. So the breath work is the same. Exhale down, inhale up. Exhale down, inhale up. Exhale down, inhale up. What I want you to focus on here is trying to keep the shoulders parallel with the edge of your mat. So instead of twisting to the side like the hips are doing, keep the shoulders parallel to the edge of your mat. What we now have is a twist with 2 anchor points. The feet are an anchor point, and the shoulders are an anchor point. And everything between the feet and the shoulders are involved in this twist. So the pelvis twists, the legs twist, the spine twists, but the shoulders and the feet remain anchored, and that's our foundation. So let's do a few more of these. And you may notice as you do these that having the shoulders as an anchor point creates a lot more resistance in the torso and the hips, and it makes a much more intense movement. So what I'd like you to do is we're going to come back to that very same movement, but I want you to take the intensity level that we were just in and cut it in half, so it's a much less intensive movement. What that means is that probably you're not going to flex forward as much. You're probably not going to get as much movement in the knees. But I want you to feel how that movement feels when we cut the intensity level by half. I want you to focus on making the movement here really smooth as you transition from one side to the other. Try to make that movement as smooth and flowing as you can. Shoulders stay anchored to the side of the mat. You're moving much less in the knees. Try and make it feel smooth and flow. Let's do one more each side. And release. And take a little breath. Feel free to stroll around a little bit and just feel what you feel. Feel what you feel. That movement especially, and your body may feel this different than mine, I feel it especially here in the center lower back. And you may feel it in different spots. Okay, so what we've been doing here is looking at fairly simple twists, and what I'd like to look at next is what's known as a counter twist. And a counter twist is a twist where the pelvis rotates in one direction and the shoulders rotate in the opposite direction. So if we use an example, the pelvis rotates to the right, shoulders rotate to the left. And the way we're going to introduce and start with a counter twist is by using our knees. So starting in standing mountain again, we're going to take our right knee, we're going to take it up and across the body and bring it down. Inhale as we bring the left knee across. Exhale down. Inhale, right knee comes across and down. Now, when you bring the knee across, bring it as far as you comfortably can and do it smoothly. Now this is smooth and gentle. We're not taking the knee and flinging it across the body. Take it nice and gentle. And you'll notice what happens here. The pelvis rotates to the side, and in general the shoulders kind of do also. So what we're going to do to change that a little bit is we're going to bring the opposite arm. So if my left leg comes up, my right hand comes across and just touches the outside of the thigh. Notice the angle here. My shoulders are rotating to the left, my pelvis is rotating to the right. There's a counter twist. Exhale down. Inhale. Exhale. So let's do a couple of these on our own. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Notice the counter twist. Notice the pelvis rotating in one direction, the shoulders rotate in the other. You've got a nice long back. You've got a nice lift in the spine. Notice what you feel in this particular position as we do this movement. Where do you feel this movement in your body? Let's do one more each side. And release. All right. What I'd like to look at next is kind of an exaggeration. I think some of you have probably seen models walking the catwalk in a fashion show, and they walk with a very exaggerated strut. And what we're going to look at is taking that exaggeration even a little further and moving it very slowly. So this is what it's going to look like. We're going to start, we're going to take the right leg, we're going to take it across the body, so way on the left side of the body. Put your toes down and reach out as far as you can with your foot. What we're now going to do is we're going to transition to that foot, lift the left leg, step over as far as you can reach on your toes, and then slowly transition to that foot. Lift here, reach across, toes down, slowly transition to that foot, reach across, toes down, slowly transition to the foot. So let's look at how we're going to do this with the breath work. The breath work here is we're going to exhale as we touch the toes down. So here's the exhale, inhale. So we touch the toes down on the exhale, lift the toes on the inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale. And since I'm strolling, I'm coming out of the range of the camera. Exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale. Now, what I'd like to add here to this movement is a little bit of counter twist in the shoulders. So as we step across with the right foot, notice my pelvis is rotated left. I'd like you to consciously rotate a little bit to the right with your shoulders. So we're going to exaggerate that spinal twist a little bit. So here we're going to do the movement. Exhale, inhale, Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And I'm running out of space. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Notice the shoulders rotating in the opposite direction of the pelvis. That's what we're after here. And release. And just take a little moment here, take a couple of breaths, and just notice where you feel the energy from that movement. I feel that quite strongly here across the central part on either side, the long extensor muscles on either side of the spine. I notice it quite a bit there. You may notice it somewhere else, depending on your own body. Okay, let's take a look. We're going to do one more movement. Here in this series, and then we're going to move into something a little bit different. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a movement where we do a twist in the leg, and then we have the shoulders and pelvis moving in the same direction, and then we're going to reverse that into a counter twist, and we're going to notice the difference between how it feels. So let's start with standing mountain. We're going to take our right foot back and our right shoulder back also, and then we're going to bring the right foot forward, right shoulder forward. So right shoulder, right foot back, right shoulder, right foot forward. So you'll notice we are twisting at the pelvis. The twist is taking place in the hip joint and the upper thigh. The shoulder, the shoulders and the pelvis are rotating in the same direction. So let's do it on the second side. Left leg, left shoulder, come back. Left leg and shoulder come forward. Both back. Both forward. Both back. Both forward. So there is a bit of a twist in this movement, but the twist is really limited here to the leg and the hip joint. Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to do the same basic movement, but we're going to do it in a counter twist format. So the right leg, right shoulder are going to move in opposite directions. So if the right leg moves back, the right shoulder is going to move forward. So notice the positioning that we have here. The pelvis rotates towards the right, the shoulders rotate towards the left. So there's a counter twist. And then we bring the right leg forward, right shoulder back. So here's another counter twist. So twist, 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 twist. And if you'd like, we can add a little bit of a cat-cow to here. Bring the elbow down. Here's cat. Bring the shoulder up. This is cow. Cat. Cow. Cat. Cow. Cat. Cow. And release. Let's go to the second side. So again, we're working on a counter twist here. So the left leg comes back, left shoulder comes forward, and we reverse that. Left leg comes forward, left shoulder comes back. Let's add some cat-cow. So here's cat, here's cow, here's cat, here's cow. And my balance is off today. Let's do one more. And release. So another example of a counter twist. I think what you're finding here is, as you just feel what happened there in that movement, counter twists can be pretty intense. They can really work a lot of different muscles in a lot of different ways. And for back health in terms of range of motion, a counter twist is a really great way to move if it doesn't cause you any grief in terms of too much. We're going to look at a little bit of a change here, and we're going to look more at the muscles of the side in the lower back. And the way we're going to do that is from a similar position to what we were just doing. So I'm going to stand to the side, and what we're going to do is we're going to take our foot back so that the toes are touching the mat behind the planted foot. So my left leg is planted, my right foot is back behind. And notice the rotation of the pelvis. The shoulders rotate a little bit further so that they face straight to the side. So they're rotated a little bit past where the pelvis is rotated. And then from this position, we're going to take the torso and tilt it to the side. So it's going to hinge right here on the planted foot. So we hinge a little bit and we come down. We hinge the torso over and we come down. So you'll notice here what's happening is the torso moves and it drags the leg, the back leg, up off the ground. So we're not lifting the right leg, we're tilting the torso over and dragging the right leg with it. So each time you come down, notice the rotation on the pelvis, notice the rotation on the shoulders, tilt that torso, come down. The breath work here is inhale as you tilt, exhale as you come back out. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale, and release. Let's go to the second side. I'm going to start like this. Bring my left foot around. Notice the rotation in the pelvis. Shoulders rotate a little past so that they're facing the side. And then keeping that nice long back, tilt the torso forward, dragging the leg up. Come on down. Inhale to the side. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Let's do a few on our own. When you come down, notice your pelvic alignment, notice the alignment of your shoulders. Let's do one more. And release. All right. Just notice what you feel from doing that movement. So just take a couple of breaths here. Relax in. Feel what you feel. We're going to come back to using the strap, and we're actually going to come back to the position that we started this sequence with, which is huddle, which is strap above the knees. And we're going to simply bring the hands in. Again, the thumbs tuck underneath the strap, fingers come on the outside. Press against the strap. Hold the weight of your torso on your arms and hands and shoulders, and let your back find its equilibrium point. And from this, we're just going to let it hang there for a minute or so. We're going to take some nice slow breaths. I want you to just feel what you feel all the way from your knees up to your neck. So there's going to be some engagement here, some muscle heat, some prana from all of those movements we've done. I just want you to notice how they feel, how all the muscles feel, and how you might want to wiggle here. You might want to move one knee forward, one knee back. You'll notice how things feel as you do that movement. We've done quite a bit of that today. It may feel kind of relaxing to be in this position now. So just relax into this position. Let your back relax and just see how it feels. If you feel like you need to wiggle, wiggle. And if you want to do some cat-cow, by all means. And when you come out, do a little bit more wiggling around. Or if it feels good to just kind of hang out here and let the back relax and lengthen, do that. And on your next inhale, bend your knees a bit, come on up to vertical, drop that strap off. And I want to thank you all for joining me today. Namaste.